Thank you for coming. I think everyone's very busy getting their drinks and their snacks. But what I want to talk to you about today, in the meantime, is how we can start to leverage agentic AI and some real case studies and some real use cases that you might find interesting for your business. And hopefully we'll find that a little bit useful today. So, a bit of a story, and until you start thinking that maybe my skincare routine is more interesting than anything else, I am not the original speaker. So Geraldine McBride was meant to be here today, but she is unwell, so I'm taking on for her. But our company, and the reason why we're talking about this today, is that we were founded by Geraldine and myself. She has a long history and background with SAP. And we really wanted to say there has to be a better way for all of us, employees and customers, to interact with the systems that we use every day. And as much as we love SAP and as much as we love all the systems that we use, I don't hear many people saying how wonderful they are and how much they love to live in them every day. They're very functionally useful, but experientially there is something left to be desired. What's very interesting, and I think we've had many conversations now with people through this conference, is that we've had this huge productivity drive over the last decade, and we've got, skipping ahead, and we've got quite far, right? And you see there's a lot of technology that you're invested in, like RPA and others. And where we kind of have come to now is the next era of productivity, right? We can't offshore anymore. We can't keep just buying cheaper resources. We have to find better and new ways of actually driving the innovation and the productivity in our businesses. And we have to give employees things that they actually want to use, that don't make them want to stab their eyes out every time they go and log into a system. And so this is really what we've been working on. We want to share with you around some of the use cases and case studies of how people are solving for this today. And if you're investing down on the lower side of that blue line, you're not going to get the returns that you need. Even, and I hate to say it, RPA, process mining, ML, we've been investing in those and we've got some gains out of them, but the next era of productivity is going to come in these agentic models that we're starting to create. I think another very important principle, and I think if you've started to use things like ChatGPT and others and Microsoft Copilot, is that we understand both the benefits and the limitations of large language models and Gen AI on their own, right? They're amazing at intent recognition, they're incredible at content generation, but they are probabilistic. You wouldn't ask an LLM to go and run your letter of credit process. You wouldn't ask it to process your sales orders because it's never going to do it at the same time, anytime, and it can't actually do the work to do it anyway. And so what we're seeing a lot in the market is this combination of where you're using all those benefits of those probabilistic models, but you're now driving and governing them with a preset deterministic process domain model. And there's a lot being written on this by Gartner and others that now allows you to create agentic solutions that are applicable, explainable, and compliant to whatever process now that you want to point them at. And so what that really means now is the next era of innovation and also the next era of investment now in these AI systems is going to be what we call purposeful AI. So AI that actually does the work for me. How many times have you gone to ChatGPT and said, can you summarize this email for me, summarize this document, and then what do I do with it? Imagine if it could do it for me. And so that's what people are doing, right? I go to my SAP system, I say, take this sales order and do something with it. Take this purchase order and create a goods receipt. And the AI is able to actually do that work for me, and that's where it gets really exciting. And so we call those agentic, right? I mean, it's a massive buzzword. Gartner's been talking about it, right, all today, and at the keynote earlier, everyone's talking about it. But I think the key part is how do you go from talking about it to actually doing it? And I think that's the thing that gets me really excited, right? Because I do this now every single day. I work with partners and I work with customers and I say, how do we solve the problems that you have? Let's make it happen, let's make it quickly, and actually start getting the benefits. And the benefits are incredible. On average, we can get productivity gains of 60%. We can get a high of 90% even in some use cases, and my lowest is 30%, but we're working on those ones as well. I want to show you a little bit of an example, and I've got quite a few examples and case studies to show you today. This is one of my favorite ones because it's very agnostic, right? It's letters of credit. It's a loan process when you're shipping goods around the world and you need to actually get this. It's a highly manual process, it's highly regulated, and there's many, many systems that this agent has to work across to make this process work. We created this with our tool set in 2 weeks, I think, as a highly complex process. And now the partner that we worked with on this was able to take that out and is actually working with banks on that, implementing these. So you can either upload your pro forma invoice or you can copy and paste it as we're doing here. And you can then prompt your agent and say, use all this information. If you know what a copy from a PDF looks like, it's terrible, right? But the agent's able to figure that out. And we'll say, go and actually now use that to create your letter of credit. What we've done behind this, which I'll show you in a second, is that the domain model is then telling the agent, what else do I need to know that's not contained in that pro forma invoice? In this case, it's the advising bank. Then it's going to all the various systems to check, am I allowed to process this for LexisNexis? Is this customer able to actually do this type of trade? Do they have credit for this type of trade? So all of that is happening in the main process, and then it's allowing the user now to confirm all the information it's going to use to create your letter of credit. Anything that comes through incorrectly, right? We know LLMs are great. Are they perfect 100% of the time? No. Are they great 98% of the time? Yes. So you can go through and make any changes that you want in terms of how that data has been extracted and will be leveraged. And then basically everything now kicks off, right? So there's nothing the user has to do, everything is guided. The LLM is actually generating your SWIFT documents for you, it's generating your advice documents for you, and then it's now going and submitting that entire application into Finastra's Trade Innovation Platform to now process your letter of credit. So all of that is now handled in a 5-minute process that used to take the bank several weeks to run through, right? So 80% productivity uplift has actually made a massive, massive difference, particularly when you're processing thousands of these every single day. And I just want to show an example of what this looks like, right? So when we talk about a process domain model, what does that mean? How do we prompt these systems to actually do this? How do we control them, right, in a way that we need them to be controlled? And so this is what it looks like. So we're telling the agent everything that it needs to actually have, everything that Finastra will require to process a letter of credit. So it could be goods description, value of goods, discharge, port, master reference, etc. It's all no code, you don't have to know how to code, you just actually have to know what that process needs to look like. It is then making calls at various places in this process to various systems, and these systems can be different systems. They don't all have to be one type of system, and that's the other exciting part. It removes the requirement for point-to-point integrations. Your agent becomes your integrator. And so all of that now works together. This is all that you need. If you are a system implementer, you can create this once and you can deploy it out to lots of different banks. And what's quite interesting is that when we start to have these questions like what business model, what does that start to look like, right? Because now, if you can create a process that complex and you can do that now in less than 2 weeks with 1 to 2 people, how does that change the economics of your business, right? You as a customer, if you have an IT shop, which I'm sure many of you would, you could do this yourself, right? It's that easy. And so now it becomes a value conversation, right? Because now you're having a conversation about the value you're creating. I can do your sales orders from purchase orders. I can do that 60% faster, quicker, easier than I could before. I've taken 45 people and you can now do that with 20 people. What does that mean for my business? And that's where the conversation gets quite interesting. And so what happens is that you essentially have now separated, your actual generation from your process domain model. So what that means now is you can now innovate in your system, you can innovate on your processes, you can innovate on what those domain models need to be, and then they run independently from that within that constrained model. So you're not having this issue where it's generating something new every single time. And you will have many of these agents, and many of these agents may also work together, right? So it can be anything from goods receipts, letters of credit, orders maintenance, anything that you can imagine. We have, and if you're interested, you're welcome to come by our booth and see all of the various types of processes that we are seeing our customers and our partners enabling, and it's incredible. We have hundreds of these getting produced now every couple of months, and it's really, really exciting for me to see. And The other thing actually I want to comment on is a lot of the stuff I've focused on is for employees. That's partly because I'm passionate about it. When I started MyWave, this was the thing I wanted to solve. I truly believe that employees should have a better life and they shouldn't have to perform acts of heroism to get things done every single day. But equally, customers, right? You could put this out into your customers, you could put this out into your end users, and the agents can actually have a brain where they learn about that customer or that user, the things that they like, what they've done before, and you can now be personalizing every single interaction with them through these agents. And that's another really great and really incredible use case, and we have quite a few people now actually starting to do those things as well. I might show you a few other examples. We like to show before and afters. Part of the reason we show these before and afters is often people don't realize how difficult the process is today. The agent makes it look very simple. This is the process of creating a business partner in SAP. And what I have to do today is I have to go into SAP and I have to fill in my information, and then I have to go to the government database and check that this is a real company, and then I have to go to CreditSafe, and then I have to check is this actually, do they have a good credit score? And then if, depending on those answers, I might have to go and screenshot everything and get approval from my manager, and it takes a long time, right? There's like a real process behind it. And I've explained the process faster than somebody actually does it day to day, but it takes a long time. This is an expedited way that it kind of works, but in the real world we've sped it up by 2x. But in the real world this can take, between 5 and 10 minutes for every new business partner, but equally this could take, a couple of days, particularly if I have to get managerial approval into it. So this is showing how you go into CreditSafe. I think we're almost done. I promise you the agentic side is much faster. Okay. We might need to speed this up again more next time. But you see, this is, and I think this is the interesting thing, right? It is just long and slow, and if you're doing lots of these, it can become very tedious. And there's so many processes that I see that people do every day, and if you're processing thousands of, I can't talk more about sales orders and purchase orders. It's everyone's biggest problem at the moment, and if you're processing thousands of them, it's very, very tedious. Okay, we're at the good part now. So basically what you can do is you can say, I need to create a record for this VAT number, and the agent's now going out to the government database, it's pulling the information that the government has about this customer, it's letting you confirm all of this. You could say the agent just skip it. We forced it to confirm it in case you wanted to edit it. Anything that it doesn't know, like customer email, will come back and ask for. But everything else is then encapsulated, right? And so as long as the shipping address and the billing address are there, then all of that has been done. We now know they're a real company. We know their credit score. And based on the credit score, there'll be different approval processes for how this business partner gets created. And so we can take what is a 3, 5, maybe several day process down to less than a minute, realistically, if you were to skip a lot of those steps. So it becomes very fast, very easy. Another one that we did was, if I'm sitting in a car and I just want to create a visit report, half the time people don't create visit reports because they're so annoying and difficult to do in SAP. But imagine if I could sit in the car, I could just talk on my phone, I'll tell my agent this was all the details about it, how my meeting went, what I thought about it, etc., etc. And then the agent can actually go and now create for me my very own visit report that gets submitted against that customer in SAP. And this type of process that you can create this in less than a day. These are really, really simple ones that you can start to do. Manufacturing, and this is interesting because also the hard part is how do we validate information against the database of the master data. And so what we've got here is we're actually now validating maintenance requests against machinery codes, against locations, and the agent's actually pulling all that information to make sure that it's accurate and this is a real machine and what it needs as part of its internal process. So you can put in whatever you want. Obviously I'm not a maintenance engineer, so I was just like it's clanking and hissing or whatever the problem is. And then everything else is then guided. So you could have an engineer that doesn't have to know how to use SAP easily and quickly raise maintenance records. And we have many, many more examples. Those are just one of a few. So if there's anything specific you'd like to see or anything that's really interesting to you, feel free to come have a chat with me. But I think the real point in this is that agentic AI platforms really are being used to redefine enterprise applications. I think, as we have the younger generation, millennials coming through, everybody just wants an easier way to get their jobs done. We're rapidly solving for tech debt. There's a lot of work that we're doing on how you can actually expedite your upgrade and make it more cost effective and easy to upgrade from ECC to S4. So if that's something that you're interested in struggling with, we can come and we can have a chat about that and how we're seeing the market handling that. Replacing traditional UI, unifying silos. I don't know any single person in any organization that works across a single system. And so the important part about these agentic solutions is that they should be able to give you that unified interface and orchestrate across all of those different systems without having to force you to then go and then log in and sit across multiple different places. They should be able to work seamlessly for you. Orchestrate data from anywhere, right? The very similar part of that whole proposition. And also eliminating rekeying and human error. A lot of the very simple agentic solutions that I see are in areas where there's really, really high turnover, and so people don't want to have to keep training, right? So you can now make something that's so simple, so easy, steps you through, you can't make a mistake because the agent doesn't let you, and lets you kind of get that done without having to retrain people. And reinventing BPO as well. And so from an employee productivity standpoint, as I mentioned, we're seeing productivity increases from between 40 and 70%. My best use cases are 90%, but also you can create and deploy these customizations and innovations much faster and much quicker than traditional coding. You don't have to have teams of 4 to 6 engineers for 1 to 2 months now to create these things. These are a couple of days to weeks of effort of 1 to 2 human beings. And that is the exciting part of it. That's the really exciting part, is we can actually now elevate and also expedite a lot of the innovation that we need to have. So if you're kind of thinking, where do I start? That sounds really interesting, but how does that, how do I even get going? Feel free to scan this QR code. I think there's some, and you'll be able to see information, and obviously, you know who I am, so you're very welcome to come and have a chat with me. But I think the important thing is agentic AI is here. There's a lot of people doing a lot of different things, and I think it's very important that when you're approaching your strategy that you're informed around exactly what you're trying to achieve with it. Whether it's something that is very solution specific or something that is agnostic. I think there's a lot of players doing a lot of very interesting things. But that was probably most of what I had to talk to you about today. And if you've got any questions, feel free to come and have a chat with me. Thank you.